Per, thanks so much for sitting down with me. It's a great pleasure to be here in your home country. Although you mentioned that your actual home is still quite far from Stockholm.
Yeah, it is. But of course, the capital is well known.
Yeah, for sure. Before we dive into the fact that Euroseeds has its annual meeting here in Stockholm, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Swedish seed sector. How is the sector doing?
Well, the seed sector it's quite stable. I mean, it's the same companies more or less that has been involved in dealing with seed trade for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And the market is also very stable, I should say. Of course, there is variations from year to year. And if we have last year in mind, and of course there was a severe drought in Sweden, and that caused a lot of problems, both for the seed trade and for the farmers as well, of course. But it was solved in the end. So
how do the Swedish farmers cope with such a strong drought?
Well, if it's 1 year, most survives. But there was major impact particularly on animal husbandry, because of course they had to. The slaughteries were fully booked, and so it was difficult to get feed to the cattle, and there was quite a lot of import from south just to sort of make them survive.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one can only hope that the breeding companies also spend a lot of time on drought resistance, heat tolerance.
Yeah, that's also key at the University for Agriculture, where they're looking at these as special topics right now.
Yeah. So you're Secretary General of the Swedish Seed Trade Association, SVUF. What are the main topics in your association?
Well, the main task we have is, of course, to collect revenues, or first of all, to get the farmers to report what type of seed they're using. And if they're using farm-saved seed, then we are sending an invoice for the remuneration or the fee on farm-saved seed. That is the main task. But then, of course, we also try to look on what's happening in Brussels and what's happening with the authorities here in Sweden as well. So we are sort of a little bit of a talking point or middleman between the companies and the authorities in that case.
Yeah, that's always a crucial role of the seed association, I would say. You mentioned farm-saved seed. How is that going? Are most farmers paying their royalties? Or
yeah, I should say the system is working very well, actually, in comparison with many other countries. But of course, the share is quite substantial. It's on a stable level, but of course the seed trade would like to have 100% certified, of course, as always, but that's not the case.
Yeah, no, that's very good to hear, because I know that a lot of other countries are really struggling with their royalty collection systems. So it's good to hear that at least in Sweden it's working well.
Yeah, and it's also, we have good support from the farmers associations. So they are understanding the value of revenue also on the farm seed to motivate the companies or the breeders to develop varieties for us up here as well.
Yeah, because I think that's really the key point of collecting royalties, is to provide some return on investment.
Yeah, and also the story to tell that this is actually a very cheap insurance for you for the future, to motivate the breeders to develop varieties for us up here. So the few euros or whatever per hectare that you're investing, that could be counted as an insurance for the future.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's a very similar story I'm hearing with intellectual property. Intellectual property is also often seen as a sort of insurance against infringement. And so it's funny to hear that also farm-safe seed is seen in that same way. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So Per, we are here in your home country for the Euroseeds annual meeting. What would you say is the impact on the seed sector in Sweden?
Well, as you say, it's as always, it's good to have sort of invite and welcome the colleagues and the trading partners from Europe and across the world to your home turf. And it's also an opportunity, of course, to tag on other meetings and site visits when people are in town anyway. to attach that to the conference. So it's very, very positively, well, appreciated, I should say, by the companies.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that a lot of side meetings to these companies, in fact, are being scheduled, and I think that's really a plus when you're in a country, that perhaps a few more contacts can be made, a few more business deals, perhaps.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So in other countries, we've been hearing a lot of discussions about plant breeding innovation, also before, but especially after the decision of the European Court of Justice last year. How is that in Sweden?
Well, it's not really a sort of a hot topic in media right now. I should say that the authorities, they've been also very active in this area, both in the hearing prior to the court decision in the European Court of Justice. And they've stated quite clearly that they would like to see a slight modification on the regulatory system and have regulations more strictly focused on the novel traits and not so much on the technology, because they see that the technology is irrelevant. It's the product that they have to look at. And also, if we add on the GM aspect, that they have been very open with their interpretation on what is they see should be classed as GM. And as long as you are not adding DNA from other species permanently into the genome, then it should not be classed as a GMO, and then not regulated by the directive 2018.
Yeah, one can only hope that this, in fact, also transposes into European.
Yeah, I mean that this was brought to in the hearing to the European Court, but of course it didn't.
Yeah. So we should listen to the Swedes more.
Yeah, for once.
In the newspapers everywhere and on TV, agriculture and also the seed sector are regularly under fire. We are often played the blame card for all kinds of things that are wrong. CO2 emissions by agriculture, by the farms are an often heard criticism. What should we do to change this?
Yeah, it's a tough challenge, that for sure. And I think communication is the key here, and also sort of course, the farmers. Perception is that farmers are interfering with nature, with the use of chemicals or with the fertilizers and so forth. But the other aspect, of course, that is mentioned, but maybe could be mentioned even more, is the impact that we have with more individuals on our planet. That's one thing that we need to focus on and maintain or improve the food production to avoid lack of food or starvation. And then, of course, the other aspect is with the climate change and what we can do with plant breeding and agriculture to maintain or improve the situation with the climate change. And I can also add that in Sweden we are discussing more the focus on fossil fuel that we have today in the society, and that this has to change to bio-based systems, and then of course the equation will be difficult to get to add up if we have to improve or increase the food production as well as provide enough energy for us to maintain the standards we have today.
Yeah, for sure. If you mentioned that we should go from fossil-based to bio-based economy, what would be the key pillars there? What should we do to make that happen?
Yeah, that's, I guess I haven't got the answer to that really, but of course it has to be. We have a limited amount of acreage where we can produce the biobase. I mean, that has to be used both for food feed and energy, and so the key would be to have tools to manipulate the system that we are producing, so we can increase the volume produced from these acreages.
Clearly, and in fact, I think what you're saying is that with plant breeding innovation and new breeding tools, we would be able to increase that volume produced by plants.
Yeah, and also produce. I mean, quantity-wise, but also the efficiency in producing these quantities with less input. So the netto will be much bigger than what we have today, with resistant traits and also quality traits that we would need for specific tasks or targets in the future.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's make that happen. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.